Born into an influential lineage, she stepped into the world as the elder daughter of Sir Thomas Howard, who would later become the second Duke of Norfolk. Her family's fortune was inextricably bound to the fickle tide of royal favour, a surge that would bring both prosperity and downfall. Despite the political storm her family weathered with King Richard III's fall and King Henry VII's rise, her young path led her into the royal court, where life would become deeply interwoven with the intrigues of the English monarchy. Her marriage to Thomas Boleyn, an ambitious courtier, produced 3 children who would each leave a significant mark on English history: Mary, George and the infamous Anne Boleyn, whose tenure as Queen of England was as impactful as brief. Yet all played influential roles in the tumultuous reign of King Henry VIII, but their narratives, marked by scandal, ambition and tragedy, began under their mother's watchful gaze. As we delve into this life, we journey through political unrest, royal machinations and a family's relentless pursuit of power. It is a story that resonates through the annals of history, echoing the spirit of a mother and her children amidst the grandeur and tumult of Tudor England. So join me now as we look at the stormy life of Elizabeth Boleyn. Sometime around 1480, the world welcomed a child of considerable inheritance and remarkable lineage, Elizabeth Howard. She was the firstborn of the 2 daughters of the esteemed Sir Thomas Howard, a man destined to become the second Duke of Norfolk, and his wife, the elegant Elizabeth Tilney. Her paternal lineage was steeped in nobility, as her grandfather Sir John Howard was bestowed with the title of Duke of Norfolk in 1483 by none other than King Richard III. Yet the Howards' fortunes were linked to their royal patron, and the family had to navigate turbulent waters when King Richard III fell at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485. His demise marked the rise of a new ruler, King Henry VII. Amid the turmoil of this regime change, Elizabeth, who was barely 5 years old, was thrust into the grandeur and intricacies of the royal court, setting the stage for a life intertwined with power, privilege and politics. During her tenure at the royal court, Elizabeth's life was completely joined with that of Thomas Boleyn, an ambitious and aspiring courtier. Their lives merged in matrimony sometime before the turn of the century, likely around 1498. Then a string of pregnancies marked their early years of wedded bliss, yet of all their offspring, only 3 survived into adulthood. Mary Boleyn was a woman destined to become a favoured mistress of Henry VIII. George Boleyn, the future Viscount Rochford, and Anne Boleyn would ascend the throne as Queen Consort to Henry VIII. Simultaneously, Elizabeth served the royal court as a lady-in-waiting, first to Elizabeth of York and then to Catherine of Aragon. Elizabeth was reputed to be a woman of striking beauty, a trait that later fueled scandalous rumours. Gossip mongers whispered that even before her daughter Anne's engagement to the king, Elizabeth herself had been the king's mistress, even suggesting the shocking possibility that Anne could be Henry VIII's daughter. Yet no concrete evidence supported these claims. Henry denied them outright, and they were conspicuously absent from the dispensation he sought to legitimise his marriage to Anne. Most historians dismiss this tale as a likely confusion between Elizabeth Boleyn and Henry's infamous mistress, Elizabeth Blount, or perhaps it was a byproduct of the Boleyn family's growing notoriety. The year was 1519, and Elizabeth's daughters Anne and Mary Boleyn graced the opulent halls of the French royal court, serving as ladies-in-waiting to Queen Claude. Many years later, King Francis I of France would brand Mary with an infamous reputation, referring to her as "my English mare," and even more shamefully, as a great whore, the most infamous of all. The genetic bond between Mary and her parents, Elizabeth and Thomas, would gradually erode. Historian M.L. Bruce stated that an air of disapproval permeated their attitude towards Mary, with her romantic dalliances intensifying the erosion of family bonds. The Boleyns eventually brokered a marriage for Mary with William Carey, distinguished courtier, but soon after her marriage it has been suggested that Mary embarked on a clandestine affair with Henry VIII, though the precise dates remain obscured in history and there is little to no evidence any of these rumours were true. Even so, it was whispered that Mary's children might carry royal blood, speculation fueled by the uncertainties around their paternity. Anne Boleyn, Elizabeth's younger daughter, contrasted her sister by cultivating a warm rapport with her mother. Under Elizabeth's tutelage, Anne acquired a diverse range of skills, from music and dance to arithmetic and languages. By 1525, Henry VIII had fallen head over heels for Anne, and Elizabeth stood as her daughter's stalwart protector and chaperone, ensuring Anne maintained her virtue amidst the royal pursuit. Elizabeth even journeyed with Anne to visit York Place after their political adversary, Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, was toppled, an event that allowed Anne a tantalising taste of political clout, and by 1529, Anne's star had risen, and she was now crowned queen. Throughout Anne's reign, Elizabeth remained a dedicated presence in her daughter's life. Tradition suggests that Anne's daughter, the future Elizabeth I, was named after her maternal grandmother, though it was more likely she was named after Henry's mother, Elizabeth of York. In 1535, when Mary eloped with a commoner, William Stafford, Elizabeth and the rest of the Boleyn clan turned their backs on her, banishing her from the family. Mary had naively hoped for Anne's support, but was met with fury instead. A year later, a scandal of monumental proportions engulfed the family. Anne and her only living brother George faced charges of treason, adultery and incest, and despite the consensus among historians that the accusations were baseless, Anne, George and 4 others were sentenced to death. Tragically, the pleas of innocence were brushed aside, and on the 17th of May 1536, Anne and the others were executed, leaving Elizabeth and the rest of the Boleyn family in the wake of an unparalleled scandal. After the crushing downfall of her family, Elizabeth chose to retreat from the fierce court life, seeking solace in the serenity of the countryside. A mere 2 years after losing her younger children, Elizabeth breathed her last, her husband following her in death a year later. Elizabeth now rests eternally in the sacred confines of the Howard family chapel at St Mary's Church in Lambeth. Once a house of worship, the church ceased religious services in 1972 and transformed, emerging as the Garden Museum, a tranquil reflection of its former spiritual identity. In the twilight chapters of her life, Elizabeth Boleyn, the Countess of Wiltshire, was trapped in a web of palace intrigue and royal scandal, forever marking her family's name in the annals of English history. Her children, Mary, George and Anne, all played pivotal roles at the court of King Henry VIII, their lives fused with the monarch in profound and tragic ways. Elizabeth navigated these turbulent waters with the strength and resolve that befitted her noble heritage. Her daughter Anne's ascendancy to the throne as Queen Consort, a pinnacle of the family's ambitions, was soon eclipsed by the fatal accusations of treason, adultery and incest that led to Anne and George's execution. Yet through the heartbreak and scandal, Elizabeth stood steadfast, embodying the Howard family motto, Sola Virtus Invicta, virtue alone is unconquered. In the wake of her family's devastating downfall, she retired to the peaceful sanctuary of the countryside, her twilight years echoing with the silence of lost grandeur. Her death, followed by her husband's a year later, marked the end of an era characterised by ambition, intrigue, and ultimately tragedy. Elizabeth's legacy is now immortalised, her story forever entwined with the turbulent reign of King Henry VIII.